The liar paradox. Imagine someone writes a sentence on a piece of paper. The sentence says, "This statement is false." Now, let's analyze it logically. If the statement is true, then what it says must be correct. But it says it's false, so it can't be true. Alright, let's try the other way around. Suppose the statement is false. That would mean what it says is not true, but it says it's false. So if it's false, then it must actually be true. And just like that, we're stuck in an endless loop. The statement can't be true, but it also can't be false. No matter how we try to look at it, we're trapped in a logical contradiction. And that is the liar paradox. The unexpected hanging paradox. Imagine this. A judge tells a prisoner, "You will be hanged at noon on a weekday next week, but the exact day will be a surprise. You won't know which day it is until the executioner arrives at your cell that morning." The prisoner starts thinking carefully. If the hanging were to happen on Friday, then by Thursday night I would know. It'd be the only day left, but then it wouldn't be a surprise. So it can't be Friday. With Friday ruled out, he considers Thursday. But if Friday is already eliminated, then if I'm still alive on Wednesday night, the hanging must be Thursday. And again, that wouldn't be a surprise. So Thursday's out too. Using the same logic, he eliminates Wednesday, then Tuesday, and finally Monday. Eventually, he convinces himself the hanging can't happen at all. Feeling safe, he relaxes and enjoys a peaceful week. But then, on Wednesday, the executioner shows up. The prisoner is stunned. He didn't see it coming. The judge was right. It was a surprise. So, what went wrong? The paradox lies in the clash between logical deduction and the very nature of a surprise. The prisoner's reasoning seemed airtight, but the surprise was real. Somehow, in trying to outsmart the logic, he became its victim. Imagine there's a small town with only one barber. This barber follows a very specific rule. He only shaves those men in town who do not shave themselves. If a man shaves himself, the barber won't shave him. But if a man doesn't shave himself, the barber must shave him. Seems simple enough, right? But here comes the twist. The paradox. Who shaves the barber? Let's break it down. Suppose the barber shaves himself. According to the rule, he can only shave those who don't shave themselves. But now, he is shaving himself, so he shouldn't be. That breaks the rule. Okay, now let's assume he doesn't shave himself. In that case, he must shave anyone who doesn't shave themselves, which would include himself. Again, we hit a contradiction. If he shaves himself, he's not allowed to. If he doesn't shave himself, he has to. No matter what he does, he ends up breaking the rule. So, what's going on here? This paradox exposes a fundamental logical flaw in the setup. It shows that a barber like this cannot logically exist. Trying to define him within this rule-based system creates a loop, a contradiction with no resolution, and that is the Barber Paradox. The Crocodile Paradox. Imagine a sly crocodile lurking by the riverbank. One day, it snatches a child. In a panic, the desperate parent begs for the child's return. But this crocodile is no ordinary beast. It's oddly logical. It strikes a deal. I will return your child only if you correctly predict what I'll do next. The parent thinks hard and makes a prediction. You will not return my child. Now, the crocodile is trapped in a logical paradox. If the crocodile wasn't going to return the child, and the prediction is right, then it must return the child, according to the deal. But the moment it does, the prediction becomes false. On the other hand, if it does return the child, the prediction was wrong, so it doesn't have to return the child. But that would mean the prediction was actually right all along. Whatever the crocodile does, it ends up contradicting itself. This paradox is similar to the famous liar paradox, where self-referential statements lead to logical breakdowns. It challenges the foundations of reasoning when predictions and outcomes are tangled in a loop. Philosophers use puzzles like this to probe the limits of logic, decision-making, and even ethics. It also has implications in fields like contract law and artificial intelligence. Because here's the big question. How do you design a system that can navigate a contradiction without breaking? Zeno's Achilles and the Tortoise. This ancient paradox from Greece challenges how we think about motion and time. It's called Zeno's Achilles and the Tortoise. Imagine a race between Achilles, the legendary Greek warrior, and a slow-moving tortoise. To keep things fair, the tortoise gets a 10-meter head start. Achilles is much faster, so you'd expect him to overtake the tortoise easily. But Zeno argued otherwise. Here's why. First, Achilles runs to the spot where the tortoise began. But in that time, the tortoise has moved a bit further ahead. Then Achilles reaches that new spot. But again, the tortoise has moved slightly forward. This continues indefinitely. Every time Achilles reaches where the tortoise was, the tortoise has advanced just a little bit more. Even though the distances shrink, there are infinitely many steps Achilles has to take. So, Zeno argued, Achilles can never actually catch up. He's trapped in an infinite loop. But clearly, in real life, Achilles does overtake the tortoise. So what's wrong with Zeno's logic? The paradox arises from the idea that if you divide a distance into infinite parts, it should take infinite time to cross. But in reality, an infinite series can still add up to a finite value. Each step Achilles takes requires less time than the last, and all those shrinking time steps together add up to a finite amount. This paradox baffled thinkers for centuries until the invention of calculus. Mathematicians like Newton and Leibniz showed how infinite sequences can converge, resolving the puzzle. Yet, Zeno's paradox still echoes through philosophy and science, raising profound questions. Is motion smooth and continuous, or does it occur in tiny, discrete jumps? If space is infinitely divisible, is reality itself made of endless parts? Zeno's challenge remains not just a puzzle, but a doorway into the deeper mysteries of time, space, and the fabric of reality. The Grandfather Paradox. Imagine you invent a time machine. Naturally, you decide to travel back to a time when your grandfather was still young, long before he ever met your grandmother. But then, for some reason, you stop them from meeting. Or worse, maybe you accidentally cause your grandfather's death before he ever has any children. Here's where things get strange. If your grandfather never had children, that means your parent was never born. And if your parent was never born, then you were never born. But if you were never born, how did you go back in time to change the past in the first place? That's the paradox. By altering the past, you erase your own existence. But if you never existed, you couldn't have traveled back in time to make those changes. It creates a logical loop, a contradiction that seems impossible to resolve. So, what happens? Some theories suggest time resists change. According to this idea, history is resilient. No matter how hard you try, something will always stop you from altering the timeline in a catastrophic way. Maybe the gun jams. Maybe someone intervenes. Or maybe events just play out differently than you expected. Then there's the many worlds interpretation. Instead of rewriting your own past, your actions split reality into a new timeline. In that alternate universe, you were never born. But in your original timeline, nothing changes. You just vanish. Your existence cut off from that point onward. Another possibility? You succeed in erasing yourself and simply cease to exist, as if you never did. But that leads to another puzzle. If you vanished, who went back in time to change history? The Grandfather Paradox is one of the biggest thought experiments in theoretical time travel. It highlights the deep problems with changing the past and raises serious questions about whether backward time travel is even logically possible. It's been explored in movies, books, and scientific debates, and it remains one of the most intriguing puzzles in the world of paradoxes. And that is the Grandfather Paradox.